Guys, it's Miss Escamilla, and this week for homework you have a packet of 13 problems that will be due this coming Friday, October the 13th. Because there are 13 problems and we have a short week, you really need to focus on trying to complete at least 4 problems a night in order to be done in time by Friday and it be quality. In other words, if you wait till Thursday night to get this done, that's going to be a lot to do in a short amount of time. And I don't really see that being quality. And so anyway, if you get stuck, I'm making videos each night this week, going over a few problems at a time and the skills and strategies that we've learned in class to help you out. So tune in to these videos as a resource to help you if you get stuck on your homework. So let's go ahead and take a look at the very first 2 problems right here. Number 1 and number 3 are both problems where we are required to know how to write numbers, whole numbers and decimals in expanded notation and in numerals. So for example, if I were to give you the decimal 34 and 12 hundredths, if I were to write that in expanded notation, it would look like this. I would start with the 3. The 3 is in the tens place. So that would mean I would write 3 times 10 because it's a 3 and it's in the tens place. Plus, well, I look at the 4. The 4 is in the ones place. So I would write 4 times 1 because it's in the ones place. Okay. The 1 is in the tenths place. And there's 1 of them. So I would write 1 times 1/10. Plus, well, the 2 is in the hundredths place. There's 2 of them. So I would write 2 times 1/100th. And that's how I would write this number in expanded notation. Now, keep in mind that right here, where I wrote 1 times 1/10, 1/10 could also be written as a fraction. So 1/10 as a fraction would look like this, 1/10. And this decimal is 100th. 100th could be written as a fraction, and it would look like this, 1/100, 100. Okay? So when you are doing your problems on numbers 1 and 3, I notice that in the first problem, it's asking you to pick a number where there is a 6 in the 10th place. Okay. And then over here in number 3, it's asking you to pick a number where the 9 in the number 2 and 79 hundredths, you're supposed to choose an answer choice that is written in the expanded notation of that number 9 or the value of that digit 9. And so think about the place that that's in. Okay. All right. On number 2, number 2 is 4.2D. That's our learning standard where we are rounding numbers to a given place value position. So I notice in this problem, it's having us round to the nearest 100,000. So let's just kind of talk about our strategy that we use for rounding in case you get home and you forget. Well, if I were to give you a number such as 452,325, and I wanted you to take that number and round it to the nearest 100,000s. So let's say I want you to round it to the nearest 100,000s place. Okay. Then our strategy is to underline the digit in that place value position. So if we're rounding to the nearest 100,000s place, I need to underline the 100,000s place. So in this number, it would be a 4. Hang on one second. Sorry about that. I had somebody come to the door. So if I was going to round this number to the nearest 100,000s, I underline the digit in the 100,000s place, which would be a 4 in this case. I would look to its next door neighbor to the right. Oh, the next door neighbor is a 5. And in class, we learned that if that number, the neighbor next door, we call him the bossy neighbor, is a 5 or more, it tells the underlined digit to score, or that means add 1 more to it. And if it's a 4 or less, it tells that number that we underline to rest or stay the same. Okay, so in this situation, our bossy neighbor is a 5. That's 5 or more. It tells the number 4 to score a point. So if 4 were to score a point, it would become 5 because 4 plus 1 is 5. Now, because we talked about in class that he's the mean bossy neighbor, and because he's mean, he gets punished and turned into a 0. And all the other guys who hang out with the bossy neighbor kind of have a bad reputation, so they all end up having to turn into 0s also. So to the nearest 100,000s, 452,325 rounds to 500,000. Okay, now what if I gave you a number such as, well, let's say I gave you 19,352, and I wanted you to round to the nearest 10,000s place. Okay, well, the strategy is the same. You underline the place that you're rounding to, the 10,000s place. Actually, you know what? I'm going to change that to the thousands place. Let's round to the thousands place. Well, the 9 is in the thousands place, so I underline it. Okay, and then I look next door to the right, and that's the bossy neighbor. He's at 3. So 3 is 4 or less, which tells the 9 to rest or stay the same. Okay, so the 1 that's in front of the 9 stays the same. The 9 stays the same. And then because he's a mean bossy neighbor, he gets punished and turned into a 0. And so do his little friends 5 and 2 because they hang out with him and have a bad reputation. So to the nearest thousands place, 19,352 would round to 19,000. Okay, so that's what we're doing on number 2, we're rounding. On number 4, we are looking at models, and we have to tell what decimal represents the models. So when we're talking about decimals, this represents an entire flat. These represent flats. So in class, we looked at flats that look like this. So don't let this trick you when you see little circles. These models are the same exact thing as our place value flats. So every one of these flats, when we're talking about decimals, equals a hole, one hole. So if I have 2 flats, that would be 2 holes. If I had 3 flats, that would be 3 holes. If I had 4 flats, then I would have 4 holes. Okay, or ones. So if I had a flat, that would be 1 in the ones place. Oh, that's kind of hard to see. I don't know why the lighting is so bad. So that would be 1. If I had 2 flats, then I would have 2 ones. If I have 3 flats, then I would have 3 ones. If I had 4 flats, I would have 4 ones. Okay, now in our problem, you need to be paying attention to, and within every one of those flats, one of those little cubes represents 100th. So that would be 100th. If I shade in 2 of them, that's 200ths. If I shade in 3 of them, that would be 300ths. If I shade in 10 of these guys, that would be the same thing as 10 hundredths or 1/10. So your job is to take a look at this picture and see how many entire flats are shaded, and then how many hundredths are shaded, and then find the decimal that matches what you see in that picture. So for example, if I were to give you 3 flats, or let's say I gave you 2 flats, then if I were to write this as a decimal, I know I would have a 2. Gosh, I don't know why I can't see. A 2 in the ones place. And then if I put another flat and I shaded in 3 of these little hundredths, then, so right there, if I shaded 3 hundredths, and I would put a 3 in the hundredths place in my decimal, no tenths. So this model right here would represent 2 and 3 hundredths. Okay, if you have any questions, email me. Bye.